My name is Pamela. I'm 27 years old. We're moving in a new direction. Brian, my boss of 10 years, said, but he wasn't looking at me. He was looking at Tyler Brennan, the new VP with a freshly printed MBA and a smile that never quite reached his eyes. Your FDA expertise, while appreciated, he went on, gesturing vaguely, can now be handled more efficiently by our new AI. After 20 years of building their regulatory approvals from the ground up, I was being replaced by a software program and a suit. They thought I'd just quietly fade away. They never imagined they'd come back begging me to save them for 10 times the price. For 20 years, I was the ghost in the machine at one of the country's fastest growing pharmaceutical companies. My name's Rebecca Cunningham, and my official title was Senior Regulatory Affairs Specialist, a deliberately boring label for a job that was anything but. To the execs on the top floor, I just handled the paperwork, the endless, tedious filings for the Food and Drug Administration. They saw my job as a cost center, a bureaucratic pain. What they didn't get was that my job wasn't about paper, it was about people. Over 2 decades, I didn't just learn the regulations, I built relationships. I knew the FDA wasn't some faceless monolith. It was made up of people. People like Gordon Webb, a senior reviewer with a thing for antique maps and a deep distrust of corporate shortcuts. I knew which committee heads preferred a quick call over a formal email and which ones needed data laid out in a very specific way that you wouldn't find in any manual. These weren't just contacts in a database. They were 2 decades of carefully cultivated trust. When our company had a new blockbuster drug ready, I didn't just submit a file. I navigated a complex web of human relationships I'd spent my whole career building. I was the company's human key to the FDA's most important doors, and because of me, we never missed a major approval deadline. I'd personally walked every single one of their flagship products from a lab bench to the pharmacy shelf. I built their regulatory department from a single filing cabinet into a well oiled machine. And honestly, I thought I'd retire there. My office walls were covered in team photos, framed approval letters, and little mementos from launch parties. It was my life's work. The change started small. It began when they hired Tyler Brennan, the new VP of Innovation and Synergy, or some other buzzword nonsense. He was half my age, with a vocabulary that was 90% jargon and 10% arrogance. He walked the halls like he was the smartest person in every room, seeing every problem not as a human challenge, but as an inefficiency to be optimized. To him, my 2 decades of experience weren't an asset. They were just an old operating system that needed an upgrade. That upgrade arrived in the form of RegSmart. In a company wide town hall, Tyler and my boss, Brian, unveiled the new AI platform. It was a slick presentation, all sleek graphics and bold promises. RegSmart, they claimed, would use predictive analytics and machine learning to revolutionize the FDA approval process. Tyler stood at the podium, clicking through slides showing how the AI would slash submission times by 30% and streamline everything. The executives were mesmerized. They saw a future paved by an algorithm free from the pesky, unpredictable human element. A week later, I was in Brian's office. Tyler was there, leaning against the window with that same smug look. Brian wouldn't even meet my eye. He just stared at a pen on his desk as he talked. Rebecca, he started, we're moving toward a more tech-driven strategy. As such, your role is being restructured. Restructured, the classic corporate speak for you're fired. He explained that my institutional knowledge would be migrated into RegSmart. They offered me a generous 4-week transition period to help Tyler and the AI get up to speed. The condescension was suffocating. They weren't just firing me, they were asking me to hand over the keys to the kingdom to my unqualified replacement, treating my life's work like a data set to be uploaded. In that moment, sitting across from a man I'd once considered a friend, I didn't feel angry. I felt a sudden, ice cold clarity. They had no idea what I actually did. They truly believed software could replicate 20 years of trust. And right there, in their ignorance, they handed me all the power. That 4-week transition was pure corporate theater. I was moved to a sterile, temporary desk. My old office was now Tyler's. He'd stroll by to ask surface level questions, his eyes glazed with boredom. So, the 510K process, he'd say, the AI has a module for that, just need you to validate its workflow. He didn't care about the nuance, the unwritten rules, or the human side I tried to explain. When I mentioned that one particular filing really needed to be hand delivered to catch the right person's attention, he just waved me off. The AI will handle protocols, Rebecca. We need scalable solutions, not artisanal paperwork. So I played along. I did exactly what they asked. I sat in mind numbing meetings. I validated workflows. I ticked their boxes. I documented the formal public facing procedures, the textbook version of my job that anyone could read in a government manual. All the while, I was quietly and methodically planning my next move. They thought my value was in the files and processes on the company server. They were wrong. My real value was in my contacts, a network I had built one person and one phone call at a time. And that network wasn't on a company server, it was on my personal phone and my home laptop, backed up to my private cloud. It was a list of names, private cell numbers, and notes that went way beyond job titles. Notes about Gordon Webb's daughter applying to college, another director's upcoming fishing trip, a third's favorite pen for signing documents. This was my personal intellectual property built on my own time. The company never gave it to me, never asked for it, and certainly didn't own it. So, during those last 4 weeks, I went through my work computer with a fine toothed comb. I didn't delete company files, that's illegal. I just transferred every scrap of my personal network to my own devices. I was just taking my personal address book home with me. My last day was surreal. They threw a sad little party in the break room with a sheet cake that had my name spelled wrong. Brian, my boss of a decade, gave a hollow speech about my years of dedicated service and well deserved retirement, even though I was nowhere near retiring. He handed me a polished wooden plaque. The irony was almost suffocating. They were giving me a trophy for my past work while declaring my skills obsolete. I packed my life into 3 cardboard boxes, the photos, the mementos, the plaque. I smiled, shook hands with the very people celebrating my erasure, and walked out the front door for the last time, leaving nothing behind but useless official procedures for Tyler and his magic AI. For 2 weeks, I enjoyed the beautiful silence. I took a short vacation, cleared my head, and then I got to work. I officially registered my own business, Cunningham Regulatory Solutions, LLC. I put up a simple website and had business cards printed. I made a few quiet calls, not to ask for work, but just to let my closest contacts know I was now independent. One call was to a senior guy at a friendly competitor. His response was immediate. Rebecca, that's the best news I've heard all year. Let me know when you're taking clients. We have a project that would be perfect for you. The first sign of trouble from my old company came in a frantic email from a junior analyst I used to mentor. Hi, Rebecca. Hope you're well. Quick question. We're getting a deficiency letter on the AC3 filing, and Tyler says the system didn't flag this. Do you remember the workaround? A little smile crept across my face. I typed back a polite professional reply. Thank you for reaching out. As I am no longer an employee, I am unable to provide guidance on internal company matters. I wish you the best of luck. Then the grapevine started delivering. I heard that Tyler had tried to schedule a critical pre submission meeting for their new flagship drug, the one their whole fiscal year depended on. He'd used RegSmart to send a request through the FDA's generic online portal and was met with absolute digital silence. The AI, for all its power, didn't have Gordon Webb's private cell number. It couldn't get past the bureaucratic firewall. The meeting request was formally denied, citing a 3-month backlog. Panic started to set in. It was becoming an open secret in the industry that a lot of these new AI tools were underperforming, but my old company had bet the farm on theirs. Every day of delay on that drug was costing them over $250,000, according to their own shareholder reports. The call came at 11:47 p.m. on a Tuesday. Brian's name flashed on my screen. I let it ring 3 times before answering. "Hello, Brian," I said, my voice perfectly steady. He sounded like he'd aged 10 years. "Rebecca, thank God," he rasped. We have a problem, a big one." He stumbled through a frantic explanation. Tyler was useless. The AI was a black box of automated rejections. They were facing a catastrophic delay. Finally, he got to the point, his voice cracking. "I need Gordon Webb's contact info, Rebecca. Please. For old time's sake." I let the silence hang in the air. For old time's sake. The same old times he dismissed as outdated. "Brian," I said, my voice crisp and cool, "that information is part of the proprietary knowledge base of my new consulting firm. I don't work for you anymore." He started, "You're sputtering about loyalty, my 20 years, the plaque." I let him tire himself out. When he finally ran out of steam, I delivered the final blow. "My consulting rate is $450 an hour," I stated, quoting a number at the absolute top of the industry scale. "I require a 40-hour minimum retainer paid in advance. If you'd like to engage my services, my lawyer can have a contract over to you in the morning. I'll have to see if I can fit you in, of course. My schedule is filling up quickly." The dead silence on the other end of the line was the sweetest sound I had ever heard. It was the sound of checkmate. The signed contract was in my inbox by 6 a.m. The wire transfer for my retainer, more than I used to make in 2 months, hit my account before noon. They had no other choice. My new role began immediately, but on my terms. I didn't go to the office. I worked from my quiet, sunlit home study, taking their desperate calls between sips of coffee. I wasn't Rebecca, the loyal employee, anymore. I was Cunningham Regulatory Solutions, the indispensable expert. My first act was to fix their mess. I picked up my phone and dialed Gordon Webb. He answered on the second ring. "Rebecca, how are you?" We chatted for 5 minutes about his daughter's college acceptance before I even brought up my old company. "Gordon," I said casually, "I'm consulting for my old firm on their new oncology drug. They've gotten into a bit of a scheduling tangle. Any chance you have a window for a pre-meeting?" 15 minutes later, the meeting that Tyler and his AI couldn't get in a month was on the calendar for the following week. The revenge was so much sweeter than I had imagined. They didn't just hire me back, they were forced to fund the launch of my own successful business. I became their outsourced regulatory department, an external entity they couldn't control, only pay. Tyler, the VP of Innovation, was demoted to being my internal point person, a glorified project manager sending me polite emails asking for updates. He was the expensive, inefficient burden now, and Brian, my old boss, had to personally sign off on every one of my exorbitant invoices, each one a monument to his colossal mistake. They didn't just think I'd quit, they thought I was a relic. Instead, I replaced them. I used their own arrogance to build a new, better, and far more profitable career on the ashes of the one they tried to burn. What's the most arrogant, short sighted decision you've ever seen a boss make? I want to read your stories of corporate insanity, so drop them in the comments below. And don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more. They learned a hard lesson. Technology is a powerful tool, but it can't replace trust built over 2 decades. It can't automate a human relationship. They paid a fortune for that education, and I was more than happy to be their teacher.